There is uncertainty in our world, yet the world is not as dangerous as we might believe. Despite recent news reports that may convince us otherwise, there have been other questionable stories that, like me, may have convinced you not to travel someplace because of safety concerns. We are socialized to believe what we hear and read in the news, and that includes social media today. And these beliefs affect our simplest choices, our behaviors, and our opinions about people and places. Now, I myself am a journalist, and I am not here to criticize my peers. I am here to explain why some stories get reported the way they do and the impact they have, and how we can find truth when rumors, partial or distorted facts, and even falsehoods become the narrative. I'm not talking about fake news, don't worry. But I am talking about those stories that create a new perception or a reaction or even raise questions, especially when it comes to travel. Adam Sachs, president of Tourism Economics, recently said that it doesn't take a lot of uncertainty or adverse sentiment to impact your travel decisions. And never has that been more true than in today's instant sharing and shaming world. Just ask United Airlines how one viral tweet impacted their bottom line. But it's true, a little uncertainty goes a long way in how it drives our travel decisions and experiences. I should know, as I mentioned, I'm a journalist, specifically a travel journalist. For the last 10 years, my husband Ian and I have operated the socially minded travel media company World Footprints, which was founded on a mission to inspire meaningful travel, share our common humanity, bridge the cultural gaps, and even foster cultural intelligence through powerful and honest storytelling. We are also both lawyers, and we know the value that facts and evidence have when evaluating the truth. But despite that, even we fell victim to the sensationalized headlines that preceded our Olympic and Paralympic game coverage. Case in point, the 2014 Winter Olympic Games in Sochi was covered in stories about potential terrorism. And headlines like, "Sochi Olympics begin under the shadow of terrorism," and images like this gave us pause. But we went and we soon realized that our on-the-ground experiences, what we call ground truthing, did not validate those headlines. And when we went exploring outside of the protected Olympic bubble, we were greeted by the friendliest people who were so happy to have us there because Sochi was harmed by these media stories. And many of these people came up to me with their camera so that I could take a photograph of them with my husband. Ian was treated like a rock star. Raise your hand, rock star. But Sochi is just one example. Remember the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Games? All we heard about was crime and Zika. And certainly the concentration of those negative stories scared us. And in fact, it scared some athletes from even competing in the games. But we went with the sole intention of unmasking those headlines. And this is what we found. 2 mosquitoes in 1 taxi cab, both gone in seconds by my hand. In fact, the Zika virus was concentrated in the northeastern part of Brazil, far from Rio. But we didn't hear that story until well after the fact. We even walked through a favela. My camera equipment was exposed. No police in sight anywhere. And this is what we discovered. Beautiful street art. The only frightening thing that happened to us on that trip came on the backs of these things. Our taxis up the mountain in the favela, they treated the narrow, curvy roads like a race course. I promise, that was not cool. Throughout our travels around the world, whether it's India, Israel, Colombia, Detroit, and beyond, What we have discovered is that our ground truthing experiences contradict the headlines. But it's the headlines that raise revenue for some of these media companies. And I don't know about you, but from my perspective, sometimes it seems like journalism has shifted from providing the public from fact-based information to these sensationalized teasers that frighten and create bias. And this is a type of journalism we must avoid because it does not support the sustainability of this planet, and it hinders the development of our cultural intelligence. As a journalist, I am constantly mindful about how my own bias might taint my reporting. And despite the work I do to illuminate and transform preconceptions, I'm human and I have fallen short. Like I did many, many years ago when I first started traveling as a student, and I encountered a group of South Africans my age on a train to Budapest. And all I knew about South Africa at that time was what I heard in the news, the racial tensions. And so I was nervous. But this group, noticing that I was alone, invited me to travel with them. And despite my reservations, I accepted. And I'm so glad I did, because I saw more Budapest with them than I would have alone. And they introduced me to something so beautiful, cherry brandy. The world is full of surprising moments like that, and like this, and even this. But fear cripples us, and it steals those magical moments from us. Now, I just want to be real. I am not being Pollyannish, and I don't see the world through a rose-colored lens. Bad things happen everywhere. And some people are predisposed to wrongdoing. But the truth of the matter is, according to a Bloomberg news study, which recently cited, it's mundane hazards like car crashes, drownings, and falls whilst using a selfie stick that are statistically more lethal than drug crimes or terrorism. I want to share another truth with you, and I know we all agree on this. There is power in our humanity. How many times have you seen a stranger come to the aid of another in need, especially during a time of crises? How many times have you seen curiosity about somebody turn into the discovery of commonalities? Think about the people you have interacted with just today, especially people who don't look like you. That positive experiences is your truth. The question whether truth has become evasive in journalism is up for debate. But what isn't debatable is that it's an imperative to keep truth front and center at all times. And for that to happen, we have to do two things. First, as consumers of news, we need to channel that inner lawyer, you guys know you have it, that we all have, and litigate those headlines. Start cross-examining those stories. And second, as journalists, we need to step back, examine our own worldview and our level of cultural intelligence, and see if that is supporting or getting in the way of our ability to tell stories that celebrate people and places. Those are the types of stories that Ian and I share on World Footprints, but it's just a little bit. But we all have our role to play in fostering world harmony. For example, when we travel, we break bread with other cultures. We immerse ourselves in new destinations. We do our own ground truthing. And when we come home to share those stories in the court of public opinion, we raise our right hand, raise your right hand, everyone, and we promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.